All right, so I got a story here that is pretty funny and also revealing in a lot of ways because it shows us how a lot of people make mistakes and how they talk about the police, their reports, and unions. Oftentimes, we'll see on mainstream media, they'll just bring on like the head of a police union or they'll read off a police report as if it's like, this is 100% what happened. We can trust the police by default. And as we'll see in this story and in many other stories, that is often not the case, and police actually probably should not be trusted at their words. So, this is a story that happened last year during the peak of a lot of these Black Lives Matter protests that were going on. And a bunch of cops in New York basically pretended like they were poisoned. And then this story blew up in right-wing media and a bunch of other people were talking about it. And they pretty much just ran with this story as if the police were telling the truth about being poisoned at a Shake Shack. So let's go ahead and read about this and how the story just completely fell apart. So the poisoned cops were not actually poisoned and didn't even get sick. So, according to the New York Post, an unapologetically conservative tabloid not known for taking adversarial opinions against the police, the slanderous tale was concocted after three NYPD officers tasted something funny in their milkshakes, threw them out, and received an apology from the restaurant's manager and accepted complimentary vouchers for free food and drink. Not much to see there, right? But when three officers told their supervising sergeant about the bad milkshakes a few hours later, an emergency service unit was deployed to set up a crime scene, and the three cops were sent to a hospital. They were released having never shown any symptoms, according to the Post. This crime scene is absolutely fucking hilarious. I mean, it just looks silly. It just looks ridiculous, but it continues. So, the restaurant was quickly cleared of wrongdoing by detectives after employees were interviewed and surveillance footage was viewed. The worst thing that you could say about the Shake Shack employees is that the acidic solution, not bleach, that they used to clean the milkshake machine could have been rinsed more thoroughly. Okay. But before allowing their NYPD colleagues a few hours to conduct a proper investigation, a lieutenant in the Bronx reportedly emailed several NYPD unions alleging that now 6 cops instead of 3 started throwing up after drinking the milkshakes. The police union jumped into action, propagating lies that contributed to an all too easy to believe narrative for people who believe cops are under siege. Now, this part of it ties into this first idea that I want to get to, which is the cops pretending as if they are the ones who are under siege. They are the ones who are under attack and have been throughout the course of these protests, when what we know to be true is if you actually look at what's happening on the ground, they are the occupying force. They are the violent crackdown on oftentimes peaceful protesters, and they're not the victims of all of the violence that we've seen at these protests. In many cases, they are overwhelmingly the perpetrators of the violence. But listen to how this is phrased, how this story was phrased in the New York Times. Keep in mind, knowing that this is not a true story, this is still how they phrased it. So they say, around 8:30 p.m. Monday, officials said 3 New York City police officers stopped for milkshakes at Shake Shack. The drinks had a bitter taste and the officers began to feel sick. They were soon on their way to the hospital to be treated for possible poisoning, with reports quickly spreading that Shake Shack workers may have specifically targeted them because they were officers. In the end, the incident did not appear to be nefarious, as we just read, and the taste may have been tied to a faulty cleaning of the milkshake machine. Still, the brief but furious uproar it touched off highlighted how tense officers and their unions are feeling as they move about a city that has been roiled by protests over police brutality. So, framing this as if the police are the ones who are going around and constantly having their safety threatened or they feel unsafe in their communities from the protesters, not the other way around. And let's try to do a little bit of remembering here. What are the protesters protesting? Oh, okay. They're protesting a violent occupying police force that does actually terrorize and kill members of their community. And yet they're still pretending as if it's the police who are walking around New York City feeling terrorized by the scary Black Lives Matter protests. I mean, it's really pathetic. I mean, that's the best word I can think of to describe it. It's pathetic that they feel as if they are the victims in this situation. And again, this is off a made up fucking story. So still, they're giving the police the benefit of the doubt and saying, oh, the police are the ones who feel scared in their cities, even though this is a made up story. I mean, it's so good. So they continue on here. Okay, let's see where we were at. So the fake story went like this. The cops were on a protest detail in Lower Manhattan and went to the Shake Shack where a toxic substance believed to be bleach had been placed in their beverages, as the Police Benevolent Association's president Pat Lynch put in a statement on Twitter, since deleted, but thankfully still archived. Lynch added that the three officers, who never developed symptoms, remember, were at the hospital receiving treatments and are expected to recover. Whew, that was a close one. In another since deleted tweet, the Detectives Endowment Association president's Paul DiGiacomo wrote that the officers had been intentionally poisoned by one or more workers, and that after tasting the milkshakes they purchased, they became ill, and that it was evidence that the police are under attack. Okay, so really, I mean, they're alleging that workers at this Shake Shack tried to poison somebody intentionally. So first of all, that's a pretty big claim to put out there, that some Shake Shack, some random Shake Shack employees are trying to poison police officers in a systemic way. And to think that they wouldn't be caught from this, just the entire narrative that they were trying to form was ridiculous from the outset. And honestly, I mean, I think that this is funny in a lot of ways. We see the similarities in recent examples. This was a video that came out yesterday. I think it was April 26th. Yeah, yesterday. And this is another one. So let me show you what they tweeted about this. So this is from the Detectives Endowment Association. What do you know? Similar to what we were literally just reading about, how they lied in that other story. So here's what they had to say this time. Welcome to New York City. Even as our detectives investigate crimes, they're attacked by emboldened criminals who have quickly realized there are no consequences for lawbreakers in our city, right? Okay, suddenly New York City apparently stopped arresting people and let out all of their prisoners. That's definitely what happened in New York City. The DEA is calling for this violence to be fully prosecuted as we look to file civil charges. Okay, now reading that dramatic headline, let's now go ahead and watch this video of what actually happened.
What happened?
Yeah, listen, man, I mean, I really want to feel sympathy, even though I don't. But listen, you got lightly tapped on the head. I mean, you didn't get smacked. It wasn't a hammer. It wasn't, you're not really injured, man. Nobody falls to the ground off of that. But okay, this is what they want you to think. And I'm not saying that this was 100% fake, but why was somebody recording this video? Why was somebody randomly recording the officer who was just taking notes on his paper right before somebody came up and randomly tapped him lightly on the head? I mean, is this really, are we really doing this? It just, listen, it comes across as extremely fake, at least in my opinion. I'll let you draw your own conclusions, but they have a repeating history here. So it's not as if I'm just pulling it out of my ass that they would fake something like this. So those are the things that I wanted to get you to understand. First of all, the main message of this entire thing, of why I'm showing you these clips and reading this story, is that police, their reports, their unions, their chiefs cannot be trusted at their word. Okay, so all of these mainstream outlets that always do this, that interview the police unions, chiefs, that take their reports at face value. I mean, we just had a perfect example of this with the case of George Floyd. If you go and look at the original police report that police wrote about the events that killed George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, if you were just to read the police report, you would have never known that Derek Chauvin kneeled on his neck for 9 minutes. You would have never known that. They didn't even write it in the police report. So the point is, you can't trust the police at their word. You can't trust their reports at their word. And stop reporting on all of this stuff as if it's factual. Stop reporting on the police. They have their ulterior motives. They have their own intentions. They want to protect their own asses. They want to perpetuate victimhood on their behalf so that they can continue to violently crack down on peaceful protesters and say, oh, well, we're actually the ones who are under siege. We're the ones who are being attacked. But it's absolutely ridiculous. They're really just a bunch of whiny babies. And obviously, they have no problem lying.